Segment 3 Gold and Black Live, and we're going to visit Leroy Keys. Unfortunately, was involved in had an event prior to this, and was the rain delayed it a little bit. You might mention it, might think it was golf. It was golf, and so we'll get Leroy on later because we want to hit that 50-year anniversary, of course, of the 1968 season. Leroy, a big part of that, on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And it's hard to believe Purdue ranked #1 to start that season. And some great stories to tell from Leroy. We'll get to those at some point. But Brian, a busy week in the wonderful world of recruiting, both football and basketball. Let's start with football. Maybe a little surprise on Wednesday. It was a Wednesday night. But Purdue's really kind of in the point now of winding down its class, and we're only talking about a handful, possibly, of commitments. More to go from this standpoint.
Yeah, you're referring to Isaiah Gibson on Wednesday. Right. There was no surprise in the long view of Isaiah. I almost said Isaiah Thompson. Yeah. Isaiah Gibson going to Kentucky. That's where a lot of people thought he was going all along. When he started telling people, though, the days before his announcement that it was Purdue or Wisconsin, basically, that's where the surprise came in. I don't know why kids do this, but they do. So I think there were some reasons to believe it wasn't Kentucky. That originated with the person who ended up going to Kentucky, but whatever. Purdue is obviously down only a couple of scholarships now. The 0-3 start has not really, based on what I can tell so far, has not really killed them. That was what you were worried about early in the year, is what happens if Purdue doesn't have the sort of season it wants to have, what happens if things look like they're taking a step backwards, even if maybe in reality they're not. Will guys start backing out of their commitments? Will this happen? Will that happen? Will they start getting scratched off lists? It's not happening. Obviously, there's a long way to go still before the December early signing date and the February late signing date. But Purdue is getting good kids on campus. People are still excited about Purdue. Recruits are excited about Purdue. All of their commitments seem entrenched. Now, obviously, that stuff can change in a heartbeat. Yeah. It has not thus far. But Purdue has a chance to finish this class really strong. Can it do that if it's not winning on the field? That obviously remains to be seen. There's lots of season left. Purdue can turn this around, and then it looks even better than maybe it would have if you'd won from day one, because you solve problems on the fly. All of a sudden, Purdue has its mojo back, however you want to term it. But Purdue has only a couple scholarships left to go, with about a half a dozen really high-end targets left, and it's has a puncher's chance at every single one of them.
Yeah, one of them you're going to watch tonight. David Bell going down to Pike High School as Warren Central will take on Pike in that one. You haven't seen him in person, you've seen him on TV, but what are you looking for in this guy? Obviously a lot of people after him, and a guy that could be a difference maker early on, maybe.
Right. Well, Purdue had him on campus in the Missouri game.
Right.
And pro tip, if you're going to lose with a 4-star receiver in the crowd, do it throwing for 570 yards.
Yeah.
I mean, that worked out well.
Yeah.
In a roundabout way. You lost the game, but you won you haven't won the
mind.
war yet,
Yeah.
but you've taken a step toward winning the war because your offense came alive after 2 weeks of relative,
slumber. Yeah.
Contrary, or at least relative to what we've come to expect from a Jeff Brom offense.
Yeah.
So I think Purdue had a really good visit with him on last Saturday night. And, there's a lot of angles Purdue can play here. Now, you got to beat out Penn State. Ohio State's still kind of hanging around. Iowa has a lot of mojo. I keep using that term today. I hate that term, but I keep using it. They have a lot of momentum in Indianapolis right now. They're involved. Indiana's obviously going to try to keep him in state. But Purdue's got a lot of angles to play here. Play right away. You can be next year's Rondell Moore, where we've shown we will feature, not only play a freshman right away, but feature him right away. We've shown that the ball can go a lot of different places, so it's not like Rondell Moore coming back next year is going to take away from other people. The whole face of the program thing, the whole what a big deal he'd be in his home city of Indianapolis if he came to Purdue. I'm sure Purdue's working all of those angles with him, and it'll be a matter of months before it's resolved whether or not it'll work or not. But I think Purdue's got as good a chance as anybody.
Is he going to? I heard you talking earlier about the fact that he may not. Might he go all the way to February, or do you feel like he
I don't know. I'll ask him tonight.
Yeah.
But
Knowing that there's a December signing date
there's
now.
the December signing date,
December
and then
20th
there's
or
the
so.
February signing date. People will wait for him. Purdue will wait for him. Whether Penn State, whoever will, I have no idea. But that's kind of the new dynamic in recruiting nowadays. It's almost like two different recruiting seasons. It's who's going to sign early, which is going to be 80 to 90% of guys most likely, and then those who will wait until February. And then what does waiting until February do to their recruiting picture? I know Purdue wants its whole class signed in December.
Which
and
is
I'm
what
sure
happened
it's
last
not
year.
alone.
Yeah.
Well, no, they didn't sign no more.
Yeah.
Last year is the model for how Purdue wants it to go. You sign almost your entire class in December. If you have to wait on a guy to get that guy because that guy is good enough to wait on,
Rondell Moore,
you do it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what David Bell's going to do. I don't know what any of these guys are going to do. But Purdue's in on some really, really good, really, really highly recruited players that you are going to have to wait on if you want to get them, if that's the plan they hold.
Yeah, you talk about, we've talked about organization of staff and how Jeff Brom's staff works in recruiting, and you get some feel for that in your day job or night job with covering this. What makes this a group good, bad, and different in terms of how well they recruit?
They're aggressive. They're good at building relationships. They're good at the superficiality without being completely superficial.
Yeah.
I mean, every kid who visits Purdue talks about family atmosphere. And a lot of kids say family atmosphere because it's just what they say. It's just something you're supposed to say. It doesn't really mean anything oftentimes when recruits say that. But when every recruit says it, it's pretty evident Purdue has a way of making players feel comfortable as soon as they get to campus. Makes them feel like they're already part of it. And that sort of stuff really, really matters. But also stuff like offensive identity, defensive identity. The offensive reputation Jeff Brom brought to Purdue has obviously mattered as it needed to, because that was a big part of the reason he was hired. That's really helped him in recruiting. But he's just surrounded himself with energy. He's surrounded himself with charismatic people who are good with relationships, who will work at it. And he's been very engaged in it. He has relationships with a lot of these recruits too. And when the head coach is involved, that typically tells a recruit they're important. Yeah. And Purdue's done a really good job from top to bottom, not only playing the eye candy game, which is so important in recruiting nowadays, but also making recruits feel important.
Yeah. Brandon Newman, obviously, on the men's basketball side, another big. You didn't lose one, but you had Isaiah Gibson make his decision the way he went. But Brandon Newman decides he's coming to Purdue from Valparaiso, and the wing player. What again, maybe not a surprise, but an important get for Purdue.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's a Purdue guy. He is. Well, he's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not number 75 in the country.
Yeah.
By accident, by at least one service, which happens to be ours. But also, he was the one guard you were left recruiting. So it was a one-man recruiting board at guard. So when you get the one guy you're recruiting, great. There's a reason why you're the one guy they're recruiting. So, and then the fit is just natural. He's a really, really competitive player. He's a really skilled player. He's a very, very effort-driven player. He'll be a good defensive player. It's almost like this uncommon blend of both of Purdue's traditions, both one being its long-standing toughness reputation, and two being its recent tradition of having shooters all over the place.
Yeah.
He's one of the best catch-and-shoot jump shooters, I think, probably in his class nationally, but he's also going to be a pretty good defensive player. He's also going to be really competitive. He gave, in a junior all-star game at New Albany in June, he really, really went at Romeo Langford. He really, really went at Eric Hunter, too, and really gave Eric Hunter some problems. Eric Hunter's a year older. He's already at Purdue, and he's playing in this game against high school kids. And Brandon Newman really, really gave him some problems defensively, but he also really went at Romeo Langford. And on Romeo Langford's home court, in a game that was basically set up to be Romeo Langford's coronation. But basically his last time playing at New Albany. Yeah. And Brandon Newman didn't back down from him at all. He's diving for loose balls, taking the ball from him, really making it hard on him. Now, of course, at the end of the day, Romeo Langford's got his points and rebounds and all that stuff, but he really competed. And that's the sort of mentality that you build really good teams around.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, and last question before we've got about a minute left, Malik Hall, maybe a longer-term view here, but a guy that now Purdue turns a lot of its attention to finally, to round out this class now that you have 3. They could take 5, you said, but they would like to add a 4th, certainly.
Yeah, I don't think that, there's any more attention on Malik Hall now than there was 36 hours ago, because there was going to be, all of that attention was still going to be on him. You can recruit more than one player at once, but it's just, now the dynamic changes where it's Purdue can change its message to, you're the final piece. We're going to sign 4. It can sign 5, but that's probably less likely at this point than it was a couple weeks ago. And you can always go into the spring with the 5th spot if you need it. Or you can hold it till next year when you only have 1 scholarship on paper, which is probably the most likely scenario here. So Purdue can go to Malik Hall now and say, you are the final piece of the puzzle. And when you can change your messaging a little bit to imply some urgency, to imply some added importance, sometimes that kind of matters. Now, Malik Hall is not going to get squeezed. He's not going to, Purdue's not going to go, you have to commit now. And he will.
Yeah.
They aren't going to play that card. They can't play that card. They don't have the leverage to play that card. But they can change their messaging a little bit to him to play the kind of final piece of the puzzle sort of angle. Malik Hall, if he comes to Purdue, he will be a 4-year starter if he's in college for 4 years. In my opinion, he will be one of their leading scorers from day one. Now it's up to Purdue to make this stuff known to him, and I think they've done a pretty good job to this point of it, but they do have a long way to go with him. Purdue always wants the first visit, because if a kid commits on the first visit, there's no second visit. Yeah. But then the flip side of that is now you have to sit here, and he's got to go to Norman this weekend. He's got to go to Eugene and East Lansing next month, maybe Austin if he takes that Texas visit in November. So it's going to be a long long trip through the desert here for Purdue over the next month and a half or so. But he's worth the effort for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, well, stay tuned. That's an ongoing story. And we'll be following that very closely on goldenblack.com. All right, want to thank our sponsors, Hilton Garden Inn, State Farm agent Trent Johnson, John Basham, and the good folks at Basham Rental, Triple X on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. You can almost say that in my sleep, but we'll look forward to next week's show, which we will have, still working on guests. We're not exactly sure what direction we're headed, but we'll have one show next week, then we'll be off the week of the bye week, and then with Matt Painter on October the 12th is the plan, at least at this point. I want to thank Gordon Jackson, of course, with all your help, and Sean Houlihan also with the folks in the back that helped make this possible, and Brian Neubert and Matt Stevens, and of course Mike Berghoff. If you missed the part of the show, we'll have it up on our site here in the next hour or so for the replay. Really interesting stuff all the way through, but Mike Berghoff's stuff especially is instructive in segment 1. So we'll look forward to seeing you next week, as we will talk about Purdue, Nebraska, and also break down what happened at Purdue Boston College next week on Gold and Black Live.